Hey, I'm Josh Blinder, huge football fan. I've been my entire life, probably just like you. The whole idea of what we're trying to do here is make the sport of football more fun to engage with the next time you're watching or talking about it, that you might have a point or a take that you can share that someone else might be interested in. I've studied football pretty much my entire life, so today we're going to break down what I think that these teams should do in the draft. Not what is going to actually happen, but what would be a best case scenario in my opinion. And you can tear me apart or tell me I'm a genius. Less than 1 month until the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay. Like a lot of people, there's two favorite times of year. There's our favorite time of year, which is the NFL season, and then there's our second favorite time of year, the NFL offseason. And in the midst of the offseason, we've got mock draft season. So this is my first mock draft 1.0, and unlike a lot of other people just summarizing how long they're going to take to get into it, we're just going to get started right now. With the first pick, the Tennessee Titans, they really need a quarterback. I understand that, but they're not going to fix this thing in just one offseason. So I actually have them taking the second best player, I think, off the board. They take Abdul Carter, the terrific edge player from Penn State. They're going to take him and really shore up their defense. It's going to take a lot for Tennessee to get back in the rhythm, which they need to have a couple seasons ago. AFC Championship game appearance, losing to Kansas City, but I've got them taking Carter first. Secondly, for Cleveland, again, a similar type of situation. Cleveland would have loved to pair Myles Garrett with Carter. I know that. But here we're going to have the Cleveland Browns taking the best player available on the board, Travis Hunter. Now, having Travis Hunter play alongside Denzel Ward, a lot of people are going to be thinking they should be taking a quarterback. But I've actually got two defensive players coming off the board in the first two picks. I think that this is the most team helping situation here as opposed to other types of drafts are going to have what's most realistic. This is what I think will help these teams the best. In the third slot, the New York Giants. Okay, quarterback is necessary here. We've got our first quarterback taken off the board, Cameron Ward. He's got the best arm talent of any of the guys in this draft class. Really close for me taking him over Shedeur Sanders. I love Shedor's ability when he has time to throw, but overall, New York really needs that quarterback. I know they've got Russ, they've got Jameis, but how about bringing in a young rookie to learn from some of these veteran guys and Super Bowl champion and Russell Wilson. Fourth pick in the draft, New England Patriots. A lot of people are going to be assuming that a guy like Travis Hunter is there realistically for them to take. They've got quarterback. They've got a really good one in Drake May. How about Mason Graham out of Michigan? I think that this would be a really good way for them to shore up the interior of their defensive line. They were able to get a guy in Milton Williams from the Eagles, Super Bowl champion now, in the NFL free agency period. So how about Mason Graham and Williams in the middle of that defense? They picked up Stephon Diggs, and so it's coming together on the offensive side as far as adding weapons for them. Fifth pick, so Jacksonville. A lot of people would think if this is the way that the draft went, that Will Campbell would be the best selection. They need offensive line. They could probably use a wide receiver after losing Calvin Ridley. So how about they take Will Campbell, I think, which is the best offensive lineman in this draft. At number 6, a lot of people have been saying it, and I absolutely agree, the number one playmaker in this draft, even above Travis Hunter. I've got Ashton Jeanty off the board early. A lot of his stock has been rising as of late. The concerns being he didn't play a lot of his ball in the highest level of Division I college football, not against the Power 4 as it be now, but still, he's incredibly tough to tackle and the consensus best back in this class. So if New York Jets are walking into a situation where they're there at number 7 and there's still a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders on the board, the Jets are going to take him. If you could have Justin Fields going into this season as the starter and having Shedeur Sanders learn and not be forced to have to be the guy for New York going into the season, I think this would be ideal, where they can get a quarterback of the future. He learns under Justin very different styles of play, which they have, but I think that this would be a pretty ideal scenario for New York. Now at number 8, I think Carolina could use a lot of help on defense right now. You would think that offensive line, getting somebody to help out with Bryce Young would be good. But how about Ted McMillan, the length, the speed, the red zone ability that he has? It's going to be able to help Bryce Young in red zone situations. So how about Ted McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, going at number 8? This is where I'm going to have a lot of people give me debates of whether Jalen Walker or Michael Williams is a guy that should go first. But frankly, how about if the New Orleans Saints were to take a cornerback, Will Johnson out of Michigan, another Michigan Wolverine going? I've got 4 going in the first round of this mock draft, but Will Johnson, I think he could be a top 5 pick just based off of talent. He's one of the best corners we've seen coming in. I like his physicality a little bit more than Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is a little bit more of the ball skills, but if New Orleans walked away with Will Johnson at number 9, I think they would be incredibly happy. So that leaves us with the Chicago Bears at pick number 10. They shored up the interior of their offensive line. They picked up an edge. They got an interior defensive tackle, Grady Jarrett, Dioda Ingbo, Jonah Jackson. They're able to really help out the trenches. So why would you stop there? Continue to build with what you've been taking. Go and get a guy off the edge that can be a rotational player and learn. Jalen Walker, the freak athlete out of Georgia at 10, goes to Chicago, and I think a lot of Bears fans walk away happy. A lot of people have been talking about Ashton Jeanty, but taking a running back for the Bears in the second round. One of the 3 between Hampton, Henderson, or Judkins will be there for them. So I think them getting a high value back in the second will make a whole lot of sense. The San Francisco 49ers, obviously such a disappointing year for them last year. I had them winning the NFC, as did a lot of people who would have pegged them to not even make the playoffs. But how about bringing in another player to help out Joey Bosa? They've been sort of trying to put that rotation. How many players they've had? DeForest Buckner, Armstead, Hargrave, I like Leonard Floyd. But what if they were to bring in Michael Williams, another Georgia Bulldog, to go back-to-back here? Didn't have quite the production that we might have thought that he would have at Georgia, but love him going in that spot. So Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, Armand Membu. I think that he would be perfect for Dallas to go right there. You can never have enough depth for your offensive line, and this is a really talented player. I thought about having them trade back possibly in this mock, but I'm going to have no trades in this original mock draft. We're just going to bring it to you just the way that this would go. Obviously, there will probably be 1 or 2 or even 3 trades in the actual draft, but just based off of the way that this would help each team. So Armand Membu going to the Dallas Cowboys. At number 13, this is so easy. This would be a ridiculous position for Miami to be in, where they could take who I think is the best tight end in this draft, a top 10 player alongside another tight end. I'm taking Tyler Warren out of Penn State. He is dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's physical. You can bring him right up on the line. You can split him out wide. One of the most talented players overall in this draft, and he performed. Boise State touchdowns. Playing the Buckeyes, he was a threat. And have him slightly above where I do think Colston Loveland is, but I mean, that's just people's opinion. So number 14, the Indianapolis Colts. They take a stab and grab a player that not a lot of people are familiar with, but I do think with strength and level of production at Marshall, they take Mike Green and they continue to build the trenches. They took Latu, first defensive player in the draft last year, and pairing him with Mike Green, I think would do a lot for that Colts defense. Number 15, the Atlanta Falcons. Look, they've got a lot of needs. D-line, edge they could use. interior offensive line. So what about Kelvin Banks? If Banks was there at 15, I think that a lot of Falcons fans would be pretty okay with taking Kelvin Banks, who's considered probably the most athletic tackle in this class, right there with Will Campbell. Longer arms than Campbell has, but the Falcons take Kelvin Banks at 15. Arizona Cardinals at 16. Such an interesting team. It feels like they can compete the highest of levels, and then they can go down a stretch where it just looks like they don't have any identity. Remember, like a big Monday night win last year against the Chargers. They beat the Rams, or they lost the game to the Rams late in the season, but they were able to beat them earlier in the year. And Arizona, as far as a true need that they'd be able to knock off the board, I think they took Jahdae Barron, another really good corner, a lot of very good outside defensive back talent in this draft class. If they were to take Jahdae at 16, and how about that to make Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit better and them getting to battle against each other, Harrison and Jahdae Barron in practice. At 17, Cincinnati Bengals have their future at wide receiver for the next 5 years. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, so that's not a need. How about edge? There's no better way to impact your defense and have them looking better than bringing in an edge guy like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Okay, this is one of the freaks, again, of this draft. Didn't have the production that you might think he could have had in his career, but the upside, he has the potential to be the best edge player without a doubt in this class, and the Bengals can pretty much be better on defense just walking out onto the field than they were last year. At 18, Seattle Seahawks, really a lot of things turning around for this team. They've got a new quarterback in Sam Darnold now. They're bringing in Cooper Kupp, Valdez-Scantling. I think that this one was a very tricky pick for me, but a pass catcher that's able to help out their new quarterback and bring in a guy that can replace the speed that you lost in DK. How about Matthew Golden running a freakishly fast sub 4.3 40-yard dash? That would be tremendous, and immediately they're back to Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp, and then having Matthew Golden. I think that Sam Darnold's able to continue to replicate the success he had last year, and then you've got a defensive coach again. Then you're able to help out your new quarterback. At 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, Levante David, obviously this guy has been so good for a long time. I think they should take a linebacker like Jahad Campbell at 19. He's rangy, sideline to sideline. You can send him whenever you need to. I think that Jahad Campbell getting a Bama backer would be tremendous for Tampa. At number 20, the Denver Broncos, one of the best defenses in football going into this next season. Really think that they could see a lot of help if they were to go with a guy like Kenneth Grant. So if they bring in Kenneth Grant to pair him on that defensive line, I think that this could be a potential, heads sort of turning for this particular pick. A lot of upside. Some people say that he has higher upside than Mason Graham with his size and production, but I do really like Kenneth, and the level of playmaking that we saw against the best backfield in football last year with Henderson and Judkins in that game late in the season. That's about all you really need to talk about. At 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is where I again think that it's certainly interesting losing Najee Harris, but easy. You take Amarion Hampton, a playmaker, you immediately replace, and you bring him in. You brought in another wide receiver. The offense is going to look different. That is the primary need of what the Steelers have, is scoring points. They're going to have a top 10 defense. You know that when you've got the best defensive player in football in TJ Watt. At number 22, this would be Jim Harbaugh's absolute dream. Being able to take Colston Loveland out of Michigan, give his quarterback, Justin Herbert, a star guy. This would be terrific for Los Angeles. Bringing in Loveland, pairing him with Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, they would be a lot better a football squad for if they were able to pull that off. And I think Loveland could fall as far as 22. Have him as a top 10 player as far as prospects go, but it does seem realistic that he could be there. Could even see Harbaugh going with Kenneth Grant in the true draft if he does fall there to that spot at 22. As well, the Green Bay Packers, look, this is a team that could use a bit more edge help. They've been sort of rotating at that spot the last couple of seasons. Like the way Lucas Van Ness has looked. Is Jair Alexander going to stay there for the long term? No, not really sure how that's going to look for them. But on the defensive line, you're just looking at this here and so many options. How about Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon? Would love that pick for Green Bay at 23, bringing in another guy that produced in college at a high level and being able to stop some of the struggles that they had with run defense. Again, the last couple of years they've struggled against the run. At 24, the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, now this is a fun team because with J.J. McCarthy, it's like you make the transition from a veteran guy to a younger quarterback, and you can bring in a player like Nick Emenwari to learn from Harrison Smith, the older player, and just become the exact type of all-pro player production-wise that Harrison Smith was, maybe even with a little bit more athletic talent. Minnesota looking really good heading into the 2025 season. The only issue is how good that division is. And then we're sitting here at 25. The Houston Texans, look, you're brought back Danielle Hunter. You're still looking at one of the best young edge players in Will Anderson Jr., you could use another wide receiver. So how about the absolute star out of Emeka Egbuka, bringing him in with Nico Collins? The length and the size on the outside, and Emeka Egbuka pairing him with his former teammate in C.J. Stroud. This would make every Buckeye fan happy. This would make C.J. Stroud probably dance with joy if he was able to be teammates again with Emeka Egbuka. Would love to see that. That would be tremendous. We're looking at some of these pairings here, like Colston Loveland back with Jim Harbaugh. Would love to see that. 26, Los Angeles Rams. Again, a team with a number of needs right now. I have some trouble thinking about this particular pick just because of there's a number of things that you think of with them, like some O-line help, maybe another corner, a tight end here. But as far as true value of what you could get at pick number 26, I don't think that you're going to do a lot better than Luther Burden, the explosive wideout, producing in the SEC out of Missouri. Bringing in Luther Burden after you lost Cooper Kupp would really work out. Him and Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, you're looking at a really talented wide receiver core. 27, the Baltimore Ravens. Definitely looking at defensive line for them. I think them bringing in James Pierce Jr., just a speedster off of the edge, would be a no-brainer if he's there that late at pick number 27. Baltimore, again, they're going to be in that divisional round AFC Championship game with Buffalo and the Chiefs. It's just a matter of, are they able to get pressure on the biggest downs? And I think if they brought in an edge like James Pierce Jr., that they could really get some help for it. Again, the Detroit Lions, this is a spot where I would love to see the Detroit Lions bolster the middle of their defense. If they took a guy like Walter Nolan, former, the first overall prospect heading into his college career, tremendous player, dropping down far into the first round. You can never have enough talent in the trenches, and we saw how much they were affected up front by that with injuries last year. If they brought in Walter Nolan, I would really, really like that pick. 29, the Washington Commanders. Again, a lot further ahead of schedule than we thought they would. So how about bringing in a versatile player like Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State? This would be tremendous for Washington. He can bounce out to left tackle. We saw him last year. He can play pretty much anywhere. He looks like a solid left guard is where he would play his best with his highest upside, but Donovan Jackson, a national champion at 29 for the Washington Commanders, continuing to protect and bringing in a really tough player for Jaden Daniels. At 30, the Buffalo Bills. This is quick. Nick Scouton out of A&M. They had so many good players up front, but Buffalo were to take another really high touted edge guy in him. I would like that for Buffalo. Again, it seemed just like Baltimore that they needed a big play a couple of times in the AFC Championship game, and they were not able to get it when they needed it. And they've had that exact type of thing happen each of the last couple of years. 31, Kansas City Chiefs. My goodness, do they need some help? I think that if they brought in left tackle out of Ohio State, Josh Simmons, who suffered that injury against Oregon earlier in the year, that this would be maybe not a dream scenario, but getting Josh Simmons, a really talented offensive lineman, putting him there to shore up the blind side for Patrick Mahomes would help. I thought about Tyler Booker there. I thought about Gray Zabel. Offensive line help is exactly what they need, and they get it with Josh Simmons at 31, which brings us to the last pick of this mock draft. At 32, your Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. And who should they take? They did a good job of extending Barkley, giving him his money, and I liked that. So how about offensive line help, bringing in an Alabama offensive lineman and Tyler Booker, continuing to keep the trenches strong with all those Georgia players? How about another guy from Alabama to help out? Tyler Booker at 32. Again, this mock draft, no trades. Just base this off of what I thought at each particular spot that the teams would be best suited, what would help them going forward. And really looking down this list of what we were able to come up with, do you think that every single team here would be a lot better football team for it? So tell me in the comments what you think about this mock draft. Tell me where I was absolutely wrong, what will not happen, what you think players should be in there instead. Really appreciate you watching this video, and stay tuned for my mock draft 2.0 video. See you next time.